Hello, I'm back with a energy update for the month of September. I'm going to be looking at the astrology for the month ahead, and I'm going to be talking about the way that this fits in with what we've experienced so far this year and where this is taking us moving onward throughout the end of 2022. I've already begun doing some 2023 year ahead readings, and I'm currently working on my massive PDF. For any of you who have received my 2023 readings or my year ahead readings in the past, I'm already working on that, and I'm seeing 2023 will be an incredibly transitional year, but we will be ready. And so, first of all, September. Basically, the theme I found when I was looking at this entire year ahead, 2022, I found that September would be a month where we have taken inventory, and our inventory reveals the results of how we've shown up so far. So let's just unpack that for a minute. Essentially, we had Leo season, we had Cancer season, we had Leo season, and now we're in Virgo season. And what I experienced and what I observed with my clients was that Leo season brought our heart all the way to the surface. Cancer season opened our heart and revealed to us what our deepest values are. And then Leo season made it come all the way to the surface. So we just have those front and center. Now, with all of our new values and our heart front and center, we are looking at the inventory of what we now know about our heart and what the momentum of our life has brought to the table in light of that, or basically the momentum that we see right now, the inventory we have right now, that harvest was planted months ago. The life that we are currently experiencing had seeds planted far long ago, before we had the consciousness that the last 2 months brought us. So how's it going? What is your inventory revealing? What did you value in the past, and what are you valuing most acutely now? That inventory might be bringing up some conflict, and the astrology is giving us a very beautiful landscape to witness this conflict in the planets. So I took about 20 minutes in my Telegram place. I have a place where I leave just some raw voice transmissions on Telegram. I spent about 20 minutes talking about the very elaborate square that we're experiencing right now. And when I talk about squares, I'm not talking, I mean, yeah, literally there are some astrological squares, but the way that we experience that in real time is as if inside of us there is a square in the middle of a town with several cowboys, and each cowboy is showing up with their own little energy saying, this town's not big enough for all of us, and there's this conflict. And every cowboy or cowgirl has their own little story about why they deserve to be there and why they're in conflict with the other ones. And what I always share with my clients is, when you're having these sort of internal conflicts, it's very important to know that none of the cowboys inside of you are allowed to die. You can't kill parts of yourself. You can absolutely lock them in jail, and they'll stay there until you're ready to hear their story, but you can't kill them. And so when we're in a situation like this, what we're being asked to do is to grow the town. If the town's not big enough, we must grow the town. So we are entering September in a tremendous growth container. And there are several cowboys in the square, and they all have something very important to share. And so I'm going to talk just briefly about it here, but I do suggest, if you want to go more deeply, and I also give an example of an activity that you can do right now to create greater clarity, which is essentially just like giving each part that I'm about to outline for you, giving each part a journal page and like interviewing each cowboy to understand what they're trying to say, what their motives are, what they're trying to do for you, and how they believe they can live in harmony with the other parts. So it's just super powerful. I've done it several times in my own life. It's revealing and amazing, and it brings so much like inner understanding, inner consciousness, and peace. So I talk about that more in depth in my Telegram. I'll make sure that there's a link in the description box if you're interested. It's totally free. I drop messages there very regularly, and they're all relevant to the current energy and how I'm experiencing it based on my own life and the conversations I have with the people I love in my life. So that's a really cool place that's updated a lot more frequently than my YouTube station. So I strongly recommend you get on that space if you are called to. But as we open September, this is what's going on. Basically, the theme is that we are becoming more of ourselves. We are becoming so much more of ourselves every single day, and we are being called to the surface more and more every day, that we're running into spaces that were previously coping strategies that were never us, or incongruent identities that were put into place a long time ago that we identified with in the past, but don't feel relevant or practical or congruent with us anymore. So this is sort of the nature of why we're going through this conflict. If you're not going through conflict, good for you. That means you've been like super ultra bringing your life into congruence pretty consciously for a pretty long time, and that all of the fruits of your harvest right now are totally aligned with you. Good job. That's not the experience of everyone. So for everyone else who might be watching this to try and suss out those details, let me just share. So basically, Jupiter is opposite Mercury right now. Mercury's in Libra and Jupiter is in Aries. And Jupiter is like, hey, listen, even though Jupiter is retrograde, Jupiter in Aries it's going to be a stronger theme starting in December of this year. So we got a little preview that expanded us a little bit, and now we're in the reassessing, like, okay, if that's not me, then is this me? And like, so we're in that process of like figuring out what is our most authentic expression, what is our most individuated, like expressive reason for being here. And with it across from Mercury, we're getting that insight from our relationships. Basically, there's people that we shared this life with who are giving us reflections and feedback that either feel coherent or incoherent. And if they're incoherent and there's a huge gap between what you're seeing and what you believe, there's some space there to get curious and have more conversations. There's an opportunity to, instead of trying to be right, being very curious about what could be revealed through this conversation. And because Jupiter's retrograde, I would say that Mercury, you should give the conversations and the expressions and you should give them a little bit more space than the hard story you've been telling yourself. Just give it a little more space and listen. So there could be, Mercury will retrograde, so some of those conversations are about to change, but for right now, they can reveal a lot if you just listen. We do have Chiron squaring Lilith as well. Chiron is in Aries. Chiron is the part of us that is trying to understand if there is something inherently wounded with us. Is there something wrong with me because I am the way that I am? This is a question Chiron's asking. Is it me? And Lilith is saying, well, I'm not really sure who it is that's got the issue, but what I do know is that I'm super afraid of losing connection. I'm super afraid that the way that you are is something I should be ashamed of, and it's going to cause us to end up alone and dead. And like that's at the root what Lilith in Cancer is sort of like amplifying in its own ways. Like, is there something inherently wrong with you that would make the situation not okay, and eventually and cause you to lose the valuable connections, the safe connections that you so deeply care about or so deeply need? So Chiron and Lilith are in the square, and they're actually as of today, I'm recording this on the 30th of August. As of today, the moon is kind of amplifying that. So there could have been, if you're watching this September 1st, there could have been some things in the previous week that sort of stirred this conversation up. This is a longer term square. It's going to be going on for a little while. So it's not like a super acute thing. It's just the climate that the month starts out in. So just be aware. That's why we kind of could slow down when we're in these Jupiter Mercury conversations with our loved ones. That's why we can kind of slow down and be like, okay, I'm growing right now. And in order to grow, I need to let some of the things I thought I was right about, I need to sort of let them soften momentarily so I can receive new information. I'll decide whether or not I'm going to accept that information. But for now, if I'm going to have some growth, there might be some things that I can open up to and hear. So there's that. Then we have a very long-term Saturn-Uranus square. Now, these cowboys have been squaring off for a while. They've been sort of like, they set kind of pillars on the outside of the square, and they're measuring how much growth is actually happening. They're like, when we started this square, this is how big the circle in the center of the town was, and they staked it, and then they squared 3 times in 2021. Each time they moved those spikes, or those like markers, they moved them around based on the level of expansion that we were experiencing, the level of growth that we were experiencing. So they're squaring again for a nice long period of time, all through September into October, they're squaring. So that's how we know, like, all right, we're paying attention. The goal is to expand the town so that all parts of you are allowed to sit at the table, so that all parts of you have a voice, and that no part of you is you're not trying to kill off a part of yourself, or a part of what makes you you. We're not trying to kill those off. We're not trying to put them in jail. We're not trying to devalue them or invalidate them. We're just trying to grow a big enough container so that we can hold space for all of this. And Saturn and Uranus knows that that's the key to growing a more sustainable reality in our lives, growing a more sustainable household, family, work space, health space, relationship space. These are the markers that are measuring that. So we feel that pretty acutely, and it will continue to get stronger over the month of September, these like measuring sticks. All right. So the moon and the north node, they're both also trining Lilith at the start of the month. So I go into so much more depth in the Telegram space. If you want to actually feel into that, if you're feeling that dynamic acutely, please go to the Telegram and listen to the most recent voice message, because I could repeat all of it here, but honestly, I said it so much better the first time, and I don't like to repeat myself, because then it just feels weird. It just feels weird to repeat myself. So, okay, so then that's all on the first. That's all the climate we start with. Some of these are going to take some time, but this is the climate we enter the month with. When we get to the second, we have Mercury opposing Jupiter. And it's trine to Mars. So Jupiter is trine to Mars. So what this is, yes, let's just have these conversations. Oh, Mercury opposite. I already talked about Mercury opposite Jupiter, but trine to Mars. I already talked about this. I don't know why I have it written down twice. Essentially, like, get curious, ask yourself what all of your parts are wanting and desiring. Ask yourself what you feel, and beyond asking yourself, really go into the receptive space of listening, and listening not to be right, but listening out of curiosity. Like, what people might actually be saying things, not exactly what they mean, but there's an energy behind what they're saying. There's an expression of themselves that they're trying to surface, and everyone's going through this. So every person is going through a massive overhaul. Like, it's not quite an overhaul, but it's a reflective period of, this is the way that my life is now. this is a result of every action, decision, and value and choice I've made up to this point. Now I'm this way. So how am I going to navigate the changes that I'm making in order to change my reality, in order to see a change in the physical, tangible reality? So because everyone's in that space, a lot of patience and compassion is kind of called for. If we love people, if we love ourselves, and if we love others, that's a really strong place to come from. And yeah, like there's diplomacy is not always like we don't want to be diplomatic at the expense of our own expression, because that might be an old identity, like pleaser, like way of being that isn't the way we are anymore. So I'm not trying to say like just be harmonious and diplomatic. I am saying that telling the truth and being curious and still stating the truth is vitally important right now, because we're all evolving our expressions right now, and we're all trying to be curious in our relationships so that we can evolve and grow, hopefully together, right? Like maybe we want to grow together. So Mars in this equation is just acting from impulse. It's almost like Mars in Gemini gets an idea and just acts on it immediately without really thinking, which can really stir up the part of us that wants to do everything right, which is the sun in Virgo. The sun in Virgo is in a square to Mars over in Gemini, and like our consciousness just wants to do the right thing. Like, I just want to do the right thing. Please give me like some analysis of what the right thing is and I'll do it. But Mars is like, maybe the right thing is just acting from the place, acting from each moment, just acting based on everything we know up to this point, and hopefully those actions will be in right relationship with what we need to do. So if you're feeling a little squidginess between those two spaces, take a breath and journal, like just give a little bit of space to the parts of you. Okay, on the 5th, September 5th, Venus will enter Virgo. Venus has been in Leo, and Venus has been kind of in a space of, my heart is so big. I'm able to love, I love what I love, and there's space in my heart to love everything that I love. And I have a super loyal heart, and you know, all of this should be okay. What I talk about in Telegram is that Venus was opposite Saturn for a period of time too, and Saturn's like, all right, Venus, that sounds great, but how is that going to affect everyone in your life? How does loving everyone, or loving what you love, or having loyalty in your heart, how is that going to affect your family and your work? And how's that going to affect all the moving parts of your life, the people that are impacted by you? And so there's been a conversation going on there. When Venus enters Virgo, she's like, okay, I want to love and be aligned with what's in my integrity and what's in my highest and greatest good, or what's right for everyone. Specifically, what is right for me, because Virgo is still a personal sign. So Venus may start feeling some constriction. She may start using her powers of discernment based on how she loves. There may be some sacrifice in some degree in our Virgo ruled places, so that we can, you know, I mean, it's having discernment with our heart so that we can do the right thing. So there may be some constriction to that like super open-hearted space that we were experiencing for so long, and that will start around the 5th. Now Venus will move into Libra by the 29th, by the end of the month. So we really are using September as this month to kind of have negotiations, to do the right thing, to have those conversations, to get us in integrity. And so, I mean, what would Virgo season be without, you know, doing the work to get ourselves into integrity, right? So on the 9th of September, Mercury will begin moving retrograde in Libra. And I think we'll start having some conversations that begin to change our relationship dynamics. I feel like this retrograde for Mercury, because it starts in Libra and then it moves back into Virgo. I think it's like, okay, we explored this. I want to be in my integrity. Let's have some conversations that like we need to shift and hear more sides of the equation. Like, why don't you mind deeply into what feels right and fair? What are you seeing with this whole equation? Let's be curious. Let's hear all sides. And let's make some changes to our relationship dynamics so that the sovereignty of who I am is honored and in integrity, and the sovereignty of who you are is also in integrity, and we're co-creating together again. So this is sort of the goal of Mercury retrograde through Libra. That leads to the full moon in Pisces, and that full moon is very close to Neptune. I feel that this full moon will feel like my keyword is soul catharsis. The sun will trine. Yeah. Basically, this is when we sort of surrender to the bigger picture again. It's sort of like, okay, I don't know exactly what the right thing to do here is, so I'm going to have a little faith that there is a wiser, more loving force of nature that's trying to bring my life into alignment and congruence with this beautiful picture. Like, I'm going to trust that. So around the full moon, it's like this sort of surrendering soul catharsis full moon. And the very next day on the 11th, the sun will trine Uranus, and the moon will be conjunct Jupiter. I feel like this is sort of this has a feeling of sort of a solution or like a new beginning. Like, oh, I think this is going to work. Like, I think this is going to actually, this is like going to lead to the solution. I think this is the right path. Like, I think synchronicities will start clicking in because we've kind of surrendered to this bigger picture, and we've dedicated ourselves to these new values, and we're seeking this harmony and balance and fairness in our relationships. So I think we'll start to see some really beautiful, productive elements coming into place around the 11th. So this leads us through the week to the 16th. Venus is in Virgo and she's going to square Mars. So Venus square Mars. Mars is in Gemini, Venus is in Virgo. These are both mutable signs. These are both like, basically, I see a very dynamic conversation happening when Venus squares Mars in these places. At the same time, the sun will be opposite Neptune and Mercury will be opposite Jupiter because Mercury's been retrograding, right? So the 16th, I think the 16th, everyone should mark on their calendars as like, let's just say if you're not feeling clear, if you're like waiting to make some big decisions, if you're wanting certain types of clarity, I think that conversation or like a renegotiation or some sort of like problem solving, like, wow, okay, maybe this will work, maybe this will work. I think that energy will be at play on the 16th. So if you're going to schedule something where you have a lot of moving parts and all parties sort of need to work together to come up with a solution, I feel like the 16th is a primo day for that. And we may find, for some reason, I wrote a note on the side that said, these are the good old days. Like, I feel like maybe we've been up to this point, we've been like, when I get here, then I can relax. When I get here, everything's going to be okay. When I get to this point, when I get this figured out, then I can take a deep breath. And I feel like maybe on the 16th, we get the picture that like, oh no, this is life. Like, life is constant changing, renegotiations, constant movement, constant conversations. Like, these are the good old days. We're not actually trying to get to a place where everything's just good or everything's just set or everything's just certain or all the decisions have been made. There's like some kind of beauty and understanding that we don't need to have all of that in order to relax our nervous system. We can actually understand that that is the nature of life. And so who are we in that landscape? Who are we when we show up to that conversation? Because that's what life is actually about. It's how we show up to those types of situations. That's what reveals our character. That's what reveals our identity. That's what reveals our heart and what we live for and what we stand for. It's in those dynamics. So easier said than done. I'm only speaking from my own hopes, wishes, and desires. But when I drop into the energy, that's the message I channeled for that day. These are the good old days. Like, this is life. This is the way it is. So maybe just accept that, right? That leads us to the 19th and 20th. The 19th is my birthday. I'm always excited about my birthday. And during this time, the sun will be trine Pluto, Venus will be trine to Uranus. Trines, so a trine means that all of the elements that these planets are in, they're the same elements. So the sun is in Earth and Pluto's in Earth. The sun's in Virgo, Pluto's in Capricorn. So I think that trine on the 19th is going to be one where it's like, I can see how it's all coming together. I have tangible evidence that everything that's ever happened was always meant to happen, because now this is happening and I'm seeing it, I'm touching it, I'm tasting it. This is kind of a cool thing to have on my birthday on a personal note, because basically what I think I'm going to experience is the same thing I do every birthday. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so lucky to be alive. Everything's perfect, even all the imperfections, because this is the way my life is now, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, we often get through strong growth spurts, and we kind of struggle through the growth. But when we get to the other side, there's always that sensation of like, I don't want to do it again, but I'm so happy I did it, because man, I wouldn't be where I am now. And I'm just so grateful that I am where I am now. Same with Venus, trine Uranus. These are also in earth signs. Venus is in Virgo, Uranus is in Taurus. So this is similar to that. Like, I'm so happy that what was let go and destroyed with Pluto, with my old value system, has fallen away to make space for what I'm building in my life now, because it's worth it and it feels supportive and it feels sustainable. It fills me up. And I know that my Venus has made the right decisions. She made the right decisions in Virgo. She followed her integrity. She did the hard right thing. And now she sees the rewards. So that leads us to the equinox. The 22nd, 23rd, the sun moves into Libra. Mercury will be cazimi or conjunct to the sun. I think that this will be some sort of vital, beautiful expression. Mercury, this is half day, half night. This is the turning point of the season. Excuse me, the season. Mercury's got, this cazimi at the same time. So it's like, in some ways, it's like whatever thoughts, feelings, it's retrograde as well. So this is like just passing through the midpoint of its retrograde back into Virgo. So I'm so happy. Mercury could be saying, I completely let go of the old ways that I used to communicate in relationships. Now that I see the perfection of the way that life unfolds, I am so surrendered to, reanalyzing whatever it is I want to reanalyze when I move through Virgo again, to create even more sovereignty, even more autonomy, even more clear perspective of who I am and how I show up in relationships. So I feel like it's going to be a pretty beautiful and strong equinox. I'm a little biased because this is always my favorite time of year. So I have a hard time having any like negative perception or hard perception of this. Like, it always feels like a good thing around this time of year. So there could be some emboldened communication coming out at the equinox. Then on the 24th, Venus will be opposite Neptune. And I think when Venus is opposite Neptune, this is like incredible spiritual confirmation that Venus is like, she did her work. She'll be getting some perspective. The note I have here is getting some perspective. I think what I mean by that is like perspective. Basically, perspective is like what we see from whatever vantage point we have from that observer. So when Venus is getting perspective, our receptivity, our feminine aspect of us, our quality of being able to feel and desire and receive the beautiful sensations of life, that part of us will be getting this other perspective. And an example that's popping through my head right now is like, oh, like for instance, let's say Venus does some sort of health routine while she's in Virgo, which would not be unheard of. And she holds herself to the routine and she sees like the fruits of her labor. And this is like, wow, because I've been so focused on this, my dreams are so beautiful. I wake up so well rested. Now I'm channeling even more clearly. My headspace is so clear. I can love even more deeply. Like I'm idealizing a little bit, but that's what Neptune does. Neptune essentially is like connected. It's the higher octave of Venus. Like, so Venus is like, I'll do all of this on the earth plane. But what I know is that because I've done that, it's connected me to all of these incredible like perspectives that I have about the bigger picture. And then on the 25th, we have a new moon in Libra. This new moon in Libra is opposite Jupiter. So this will be like, with all of this beautiful insight, with this new perspective, I'm going to plant a new seed for the way I co-create with others, for the space that I hold when I'm sharing space in relationship. And this will be like balm to the growth that Jupiter is bringing us into in Aries. It'll be like, because who we are as souls and who we are as individuals really is the way, like it like is reflected in the way we show up in our relationships. Like that challenge that we experience, that revelation we experience in relationship really does show us what we're made of and who we really are. So we have this new moon in Libra that's like, because this is who I am. This is the identity I have. This is the role that I play in this life. And that's why my relationships that I co-create with are going to be this way. Mars will be trine Saturn. The note I have on Mars trine Saturn, Mars is in Gemini, Saturn is in Aquarius. The note I have there is that we need to own our growth. We need to like own, it's at 19 degrees. So it's like, I think we'll be reflecting on a certain amount of growth that we've done interpersonally through all of our actions and through conscientiousness and thinking about our impact. And this will be a moment where we're like, okay, when we own our growth, we either own that we have grown or we own that we haven't grown enough. And it's a trine, so I feel it'll be a harmonious reflection. And it's right before Venus moves into Libra on the 29th with Mercury opposite Neptune. I honestly think the end of the month is going to feel phenomenal. Lilith will be sextile Uranus. That's also harmonious. I feel like we're going to end the month so proud of ourselves for navigating all that we have. So the month, even though it starts out pretty thick, I believe it's going to end in a very like feeling like we're face to face, we're on the ground level, we're walking our walk, we're in our integrity, we know where we're going, we know what we need to do to get there, and we're doing it. Like we're owning it. We are showing up, and we prepared ourselves, because October and November are going to lead us back into eclipse season, where we make brand new boundaries for the rest of the journey. And it just keeps going. Like, all the work we're doing now up front is just going to set us up for the most powerful 2023 that we can possibly have. And I know I always put this like positive spin, not saying any of this is easy or effortless. I'm not saying that it's like pleasurable to go through some of the humbling aspects that we're going through, but I am saying it's worth it. And I am actively owning the worth itness of that. And I think it's because I see where we're going, and I know that things don't just happen without our participation. We can drop into the default settings of this reality and just ride the crazy chaotic waves of the default world. Perfectly valid. I just haven't chosen to do that. I feel that there's a very exciting, pioneering forefront where we actually get to create and, you know, navigate and like co-create. Like, I watched this YouTuber recently who was talking about how our creative experience is 1/3 of reality, that there's a very receptive part of reality that co-creates with the ownership of that 1/3 of that energy that we get to encompass, and that there's another third that we can, let's say that we're only partially owning our third, right? Then we're over there in the default settings, and there's the default mode that we could just drop into through complacency or boredom or like disconnect or like isolation, like self-doubt, like losing hope, cutting off connections, numbing ourselves. There's a default world that holds us in that space. It's not a bad world, it just doesn't feel ultra powerful. And it's a world that's created to keep us like semi-safe. It's not an ultra powerfully feeling creative world, but it will eventually kill you, but we're going to die anyway. I mean, it's just that it doesn't feel as on fire and alive as this other co-creative part of reality. So I see that we are this important middle choice factor in reality. And if we own that, if we fully embody that 33% that we are, and we focus our attention on the creative part of the reality, oh my gosh, anything can happen. All things are so possible. Like, this is the realm of magic. This is the realm of like the sky's the limit. Like, what we ought to be doing every moment is hacking the default settings that we haven't questioned in our own system, and building new systems for interacting with the creative part of reality. Like, in the way that we can understand that there's a limiting default setting at play is that there's a part of our life that's still frustrated. There's a part of our life that we've been settling for. There's like a part of our life that we don't think we have any power over. That's a pretty good indicator that for that percentage of us, we're still stuck in the default settings. We haven't jailbreak that part of ourselves yet. And oh my gosh, like, all of our heat-seeking missiles should go to that part, because the more we jailbreak ourselves from the default, the more magical life becomes, and the more possibilities, and the more incredibly beautiful the fabric of reality is. And so, like, this is why I look at and pay attention to the astrological cycles, because I get it, and I actively see now like the ways that I am still ingrained in the default settings and the ways that I've jailbreaked myself. I can see, and my inventory has revealed, and now I'm like, oh, well, I know how I've done this in the past. I know how I've done this for other areas of my life. Now let's apply it to these other areas, because one thing is not different from the other. Like, there's not, like, just like I say in my talks, these planets, no planet has more gravity than any other planet. In fact, when you can observe every planet as if it's sitting at a table and you just give it its voice, they fail to jerk us around. Like they failed. I literally, I don't mean it like that. Like they failed to grab us. Like this astrologer I love, his name's Adam Ellenboss, Chutabava. He's got Nightlight Astrology. I watch a lot of his videos. In his Hellenistic astrology class, he talks about how the planets, they were called grahas or grabbers, and they can grab our subconscious and like, I don't know, like mess with us. Like we can get pulled into these dynamics where we lose some perspective and we start really over identifying with our little dramas and with the like dynamics that are like sticky and whatever. And I've always really enjoyed thinking of it like that. And when we give space to each of these parts and we put them all at a round table and no one gets to be an authority and we get to observe all of these parts from our vantage point at the table of the observer, suddenly they can all have a voice and no one's bullying us. Like, fair enough, I hear what you're saying. What do you have to say? You know? And so anyways, I've recently started doing this with my Lilith parts, which has been wildly interesting and juicy and interesting. I keep using the word interesting, but essentially like to help me identify, like to be able to hear her speaking at the table without really like suppressing or pushing her away. I've actually given her a name, and like I had other parts that sort of tried, well, oh my gosh, I'm totally getting sidetracked, but like basically I relate to my own chart, like a round table discussion, and I have relationships with each of my planets, and they literally have like personalities at my round table, and they soothe each other in certain ways and whatever. Like I know it's strange, but this is my very personal way of experiencing the astrology. All of that being said, if you're interested in that type of conversation, go down to my Telegram. The link's in the description box. Join me there. Lots of strange and lively conversations about our roundtable discussions. And I have an astrology class. If you're interested in studying yourself more and learning astrology at the same time, basically the class is geared to acquaint you with your roundtable and help you to know each of the characters that sit there. They're archetypal characters, so we all have the same characters, but we relate to them differently, and they have different positions at the table, and they have different like alliances at the table as well, or oppositions at the table. So the class is geared to help you get acquainted with that. And I have this on my website. You just sign up, you get into a space where all the videos, there's 12 videos, and certain like PDFs and stuff are there to help you sort of navigate. So if you're interested in that, I'll leave a link for that in the description box also. And then last like little announcement, I feel like I want to open up a space, and I've been talking about this for a while. I want to open up a space for roundtable discussions, like with real people, like actual real people who are interested in astrology, who watch my videos, maybe people who've taken my classes before, although it's not a prerequisite. Essentially, I'm interested in people who want to have astrology conversations and who want to talk about how they're experiencing the astrology and basically share like the nuts of the story so that we can examine it from an astrological perspective and sort of communicate about it in a group setting. So if this is interesting to you, I've been thinking about it for a while. It feels exciting to me. Leave a below and let me know if that's something that you want to be a part of. I'll do it if enough people are into it. Like if it seems like I have, a handful of 6 or 7 people who are like, yeah, I want to do it, then I'll go ahead and go with it. But I think I'm Like, I'm not just going to do stuff arbitrarily thinking that people want this stuff. Like, it might be enough at this point for people to just be like, girl, I'll just watch your videos or listen to your Telegram. Like, that's enough for me. Perfectly fine. I'm not going to like throw extra pots on the stove if I don't really need to throw pots on the stove, if you know what I mean. So let me know, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot. Bye.